Welcome back. In this video, we are going to set up a Docker environment on your local machine. So, let's get started. When people say Docker, they typically mean Docker Engine. However, Docker Engine runs natively on Linux. So if you have a Linux box as your primary system and you want to run Docker commands, all you need is a Docker Engine. But if you are on Windows or on a Mac machine, you have two options: Docker Desktop and Docker Toolbox. Docker Desktop is available on newer versions of Windows and Mac. The Docker Desktop is a native application that provides an easy to use Docker environment. On Windows 10 and on the latest Mac machines, the Docker Desktop uses a Hyper-V technology to create a Linux environment and run Docker Engine. So you cannot install Docker Desktop on older machines because they are not supporting the hypervisor virtualization. However, on older operating systems, you can still create a Docker Engine using Docker Toolbox. The Toolbox is a combination of multiple tools. Since Docker Engine requires a Linux machine, you will need Oracle VirtualBox. The Docker machine is a tool that lets you install Docker Engine on virtual and remote hosts. So, you will need Docker machine to run Docker Engine in the virtual box. Make sense? The Docker Engine is the main thing. CLI and Kitematic are the user interfaces to interact with the Docker Engine. Great. The next question is how to get these things. Well, you need to create a Docker Hub account. Go to hub.docker.com. If you do not have a Docker ID yet, sign up for the Docker Hub. Once you get your Docker account, you can sign in to the Docker Hub. Great. You can now download the Docker Desktop using this link. I am looking for Docker Engine Community. Okay, so here is the list. If you are on Mac machine, you should be downloading this one. Similarly, you have links for CentOS, Ubuntu, and few others. Windows 10 Pro Edition users can get this one. If you are on Windows 10 Home Edition or on a Windows 7 operating system, you can get the Docker Toolbox from GitHub. Download an executable for the most recent version. Assuming that you got your download, the next step is to install it. Let me first show you the Docker Toolbox installation. Hello everyone, I am Prashant and I am your instructor at Learning Journal. I am here today to announce my first Udemy training. In this training, I am teaching two things: creating streams and processing streams. And I'll be using a problem solution approach. We'll define an example problem and then I'll be coding it. You will be watching me coding live and learn to develop solutions for your real-time streaming problems. You will have instructor support from me. I'll be using Udemy support platform to answer your queries and clarify your doubts. What are you waiting for? Grab it today and grow in your career with Kafka Streams. Use this link for purchasing at a discounted price. This link is also included in the description and in the first pinned comment. Installing the Docker Toolbox is straightforward. All you need to do is to keep the default options and select Next. Once your Toolbox installation is over, you should see a shortcut for Docker Quick Start Terminal. And that's your starting point. Double click and wait for the terminal to start. Getting the Docker Toolbox to work is sometimes tricky. It might show you some pre-check failure errors and ask you to enable virtualization in your system BIOS. However, you should be able to fix those small hurdles and get it working. If everything goes well, you should be seeing a shell prompt and start running your Docker commands. You can do a lot with Docker. However, let's get started with the first step. Creating and using Docker containers. Here is my Spark image. This image comes with CentOS 8 and a local mode Spark 3.0. Copy this command and execute it in your Docker Toolbox shell. I am running it for the first time. So the Docker is going to download the image from the public Docker Hub repository. Finally, you will get a shell terminal. I am now inside the container, which comes with a local mode Spark 3.0. Let me start the Spark shell. Here you go. You can start using the Spark shell. More on Spark is covered in the Spark training videos. When your container is running, you can start the Kitematic and look at some necessary things. For example, I wanted to access the Spark UI. The container exposes the Spark UI at this IP and port. Once you are done with the Spark shell, you can quit by pressing Ctrl D. If you want to see available image in your local repository, use Docker images command. If you want to see the list of running containers, use the Docker PS command. Nothing is running. That's all on the Docker Toolbox installation. Now let's install Docker Desktop. Again, the installation is as simple as clicking the next button. Once your Docker Desktop is installed, you should see a shortcut on your desktop. Let me start it. If Hyper-V is not enabled, Docker is going to do it, and doing so is going to require a restart. Go ahead and press the OK button. After the restart, you should be seeing a Docker icon in your task pane. Docker Desktop runs as a service and it should automatically start. If you don't see it running, you can start it using the desktop shortcut. That's it. You are ready. Start Windows PowerShell or even the older CMD tool will do the job. Let's create a container and test it. This time, I am going to start a Kafka container. Here is my Kafka 3-in-1 container. This container comes with Zookeeper and 3-node Kafka cluster in a single container. Copy this command and run it in your PowerShell window. You can start another PowerShell and start using Kafka client from your local machine. That's all. See you in the next lecture. Keep learning and keep growing.